talking about this thing here where the Rays are talking about possibly playing some games in Montreal. There's a Florida senator. He stepped out today, said he's not down to share the Rays with Montreal. Get your own team.
Wow. All right. You know what I'm going to do for this?
You want to move it up to the next segment?
No, I'm going to bring the caller in.
Okay.
Because he is a baseball aficionado.
Okay.
All right. So we have on the line. He is calling from San Diego, California. He is a blogger with the Baseball Writers Association of America. His blog is Throneberry Fields. His name is Jeff Kallman. Jeff, are you there? Can you hear us?
I hear you loud and clear from Las Vegas.
All right. So we hear you loud and clear also. How's it going, Jeff?
So far, so good. I was watching the New York Mets play the Phillies, and so far, it's been a very interesting game. If you like this sort of thing, they've been swapping bombs, defensive slickness, defensive inconsistency, pitching mismanagement, finally hitting it off wasted hard.
That sounds like fun.
And I still don't know how the game's going to end up. They're in the top of the sixth, and the Phillies are up 8-6.
Nice. That's turning into a Yankees-Red Sox kind of thing. So, Jeff, check this out. We have a couple of topics that just came up before we get to your latest blog entry about the All-Star voting that I wanted to get your opinion on. Let's first start with what Joe just mentioned. And by the way, so this is Joe, Jason, and I'm Joey. What Joe just mentioned is about the Tampa Bay Rays looking to play exhibition games in Montreal. Give us an update on that story, Joe, before Jeff comments.
I'm sure he probably knows the whole story, but the part that I know is that they wanted to play some games in Montreal. And one of the Florida senators said he's not down to share their team, the Devil Rays, with Montreal. They should get their own team.
Really?
Yeah.
I bet you that senator has yet to attend a Tampa Bay Rays game.
Probably has not been. But he's defending his territory.
Right. So yeah. Florida is an incredibly weird place for professional well, not for professional baseball, but for Major League Baseball. Reason being is because Florida is filled with professional baseball. Mm-hmm. So
it is alleged.
Florida, they're all transplants. So the Tampa Bay Rays' biggest sellouts are when the Yankees come and when the Red Sox come because of the retirees from the Northeast.
Yep.
Right? So no one goes to see the Rays. They go to see who the Rays are playing. Miami, a little bit similar of a situation when it comes to the Mets and the Phillies and more Northeast teams coming down. But you know, there's also an issue of splitting up entertainment dollars in Miami where people really aren't that interested in going to the Marlins game. So Florida is pretty much a bad place for Major League Baseball. And then the other thing is minor league baseball, after spring training in February and March, well, minor league baseball continues throughout the state of Florida throughout the season. So, you know, it's almost like an overdose. Jeff, tell us what you think about the Rays potentially moving and how Montreal would be a fit.
Well, for one thing, if the Rays want to play half a season in Montreal, what's going to be next? Are the Marlins going to want to play half a season in Vancouver?
Mm-hmm. Well, if Vancouver was in the East, I could see that, but definitely I could see Montreal.
Let's not get technical. But anyway, so about all this, and I mentioned this in the article that prompted you guys to bring me aboard. I would rather see baseball expand to make 16-team leagues instead of the current 15. And if they do so, it wouldn't be so terrible to invite Montreal back to the National League, assuming you can find owners willing to build a decent ballpark without making the mistake that cost Montreal the Expos in the first place, namely trying to soak Montreal's taxpayers to pay for it.
Okay.
And if you're going to extend the National League back to Montreal, why not award an American League team to Portland, Oregon? I said it again in that article. The National League has 3 teams on the West Coast. The American League has 2, and a team in Portland, Oregon would even that out, as well as evening the leagues out.
Right.
Because 15-team leagues is really ridiculous for a number of reasons, which we probably don't have time to go into. But one of the things is, with a 15-team league, excuse me, it's a lot more difficult to think about what one thing that really needs to get done is get rid of an in-season interleague play.
Right. So the whole reason why
and it would be easier to do that if the leagues were even.
What about going back to 16 and 14?
I'm talking about 16-16. If you want to expand and bring Montreal back in,
Okay.
I'm just playing on an even number of teams in each league.
Right.
It would make it easier to do away with interleague play, which has really done as much harm as good as far as things like, pennant races are concerned.
Right. And I got to be honest with you, as a New York baseball fan, I enjoy when the Mets and the Yankees hook up, but I definitely get the idea that it's pretty much unnecessary.
It's fun for maybe, the first game of the series, but let's be real.
Right.
Anytime, any Yankee-Met rivalry, any Dodger-Angel rivalry, any Cub-White Sox rivalry, it's fun for the moment, but it's nothing like the Yankee-Red Sox rivalry, the Dodgers and the Giants, the Cubs and the Cardinals.
Right.
And possibly butting the Twins and the Indians right now. They seem to have a rivalry building up.
Okay.
Those are the rivalries that really get the blood flowing in baseball. The interleague rivalries, they're fun for a few moments, but that's about it.
Right.
They're really more fun to watch in exhibition games.
Right, and I would assume, not knowing the inner workings of Rangers and Astros, which is not even a thing anymore because they're in the same league, but Dodgers and Angels.
They really haven't had a chance to develop any kind of rivalry, regardless of who's in which league.
Right.
I mean, for all these years, the Astros and the Rangers have never seen each other that way. And that's going back to when the Astros were in the National League.
Right. Cubs, White Sox. So Cubs, White Sox, Yankees and Mets, Angels and Dodgers are really the marquee matchups for interleague play. And as you are saying,
that's only three. And there are seasons where they don't get to face each other.
Right. Right. Well, I think what they've done now is made it so that those three series are locked in, which goes to your point that it even further skews the equity around the league in terms of teams playing fair schedules.
Well, it's that and all manner of other issues, mostly the fact that it's not the draw at the box office that everybody cracked it up to be becoming when they first put this thing into place. And that's one of baseball's biggest problems. When the game isn't broken, they call in the repairmen and bring in the gimmicks. But where there are real problems to be solved, the repairmen are sitting waiting for the phone to ring.
Right. They can't fix it because it's too old to fix it. It's too much tradition. All right, real quick
It's not too old to fix. You've just got a lot of people in the game whose brains are sleeping.
Exactly.
Baseball's not too old to fix. Baseball historically has either fixed itself organically or someone finally stood up on his hind legs and said, this is not right.
Right. So, quick change of topic. We're going to talk about one of your favorite teams, the New York Mets. I am looking at an article in the New York Post which says Van Wagenen is managing the Mets games from home. All right, and I'm just going to give you the first couple
I don't really know how true that is, but what I do know is this. Brody Van Wagenen is a first-year general manager and is in so far over his head he needs a periscope to see 10 feet below the surface. Mickey Callaway is a second-year manager who is in far, far over his head, and it's killing that team.
Okay.
Especially the Mets pitching problems. You would think that a manager who was a pitcher in the major leagues and a pitching coach would know better, but it seems like every time you turn around, there is a new issue involving pitching and involving some very good pitchers who are either not being put in position to succeed or who are being mismanaged, malmanaged, or not even managed. Take a look what happened in Chicago on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone watching that game, and the Mets announcers spoke of it frequently, knew that Seth Lugo was not at his best in the seventh inning. So why did Callaway send him out for another inning when he had A, a freshly prepared Robert Gesellman in the bullpen ready to go, or B, when Lugo got into trouble first, why not ask Edwin Diaz for a 5-out save?
Right.
Instead, he left Lugo in when he was not even at his best to begin with, and he got nailed for a 3-run homer, and it turned the game around.
Right. So here's
then-
what
and
here's what the Post says, and I'm going to just read directly from the New York Post. According to an industry source, it was the rookie GM who instructed Mickey Callaway to remove Jacob deGrom from a game in Arizona earlier this month, in which the Mets ace sustained a hip cramp. After deGrom was removed from the game in the seventh inning, the bullpen imploded. The source said Van Wagenen, who was watching the game at home on TV, communicated with a member of the Met support staff with an order to remove deGrom from the game. So have you heard that?
I had heard that, and if Van Wagenen is managing at least half the games, I don't know to the extent of which he's doing it, but if he's doing it to any extent at all, Van Wagenen is exposing how little he knows about baseball.
Right.
Now let me qualify this. I am on board with analytics. If you've read my writings, you see that. But I am also cognizant of the idea that analytics can only be 6 parts of the baseball equation. The other half dozen parts, you have to know your personnel above and beyond the surface and even the secondary numbers. Now, Jacob deGrom, and I looked this up the other day for curiosity, Jacob deGrom is effective going the third time through a batting order.
Right.
It would not have been that difficult to let him stay in the game when he was still effective against the Diamondbacks.
But what about the fear of
even
injury, and not to mention Van Wagenen being deGrom's former agent? Is there a possibility that could have come into play?
There's a big possibility of it, particularly because, A, whatever was wrong with deGrom, it didn't look like it was affecting him. And as a matter of fact, on Sunday in Chicago, deGrom got lifted because he said he wasn't comfortable with a callus on his landing foot, his left foot. But he has pitched, but a callus on your left foot isn't as serious as, say, if you've got an ankle sprain, or if you feel something pop in your shoulder, or if you've got a hip flexor, or some such thing like that. Somebody in the Mets organization is not paying close attention to their personnel.
Yeah, well,
somebody is dropping more balls than the Mets are hitting.
Right. That's the Mets. I think we're depressing some people right now.
And I thought it was admirable for the Mets to think outside the box and engage Van Wagenen when it happened. But the more I've seen of it, the more I'm thinking to myself, hey, those of us who thought it was great thinking out of the box in this case, we were wrong.
Right. All right,
we
Jeff.
were wrong. Van Wagenen has not rebuilt a solid team. In fact, I'm not even sure you can call it that much of a team when you look at it. Van Wagenen has constructed so clumsily. He's got a bullpen of compromised stock. They now have fielders playing out of positions.
Yeah.
And nobody in that clubhouse or in that dugout suddenly seems to be accountable for anything. When Jason Vargas, who was a key part of the Sunday clubhouse scrum, can say today it was just an unfortunate distraction, where's the accountability?
Right.
Callaway gives either a non-apologetic apology or an apologetic non-apology today, depending on how you want to translate it, and you're still asking, where's the accountability? Van Wagenen is giving him a third vote of confidence just this season alone. Where's the accountability in this club?
Ooh. Oh, man, I could just tell you right now, Mets fans obviously have been, I think they're just kind of used to this. So and I was pretty sure that they were going to have a good year this year. My only concern, obviously, was the strength of the division with those 4 teams all in February and March vying for a championship. So not knowing whether they would finish 1 or 4, but still thought that they had the capability of finishing 4. Let's move on to
Coming out of spring training, they look like a contending team.
Right.
There's no question about
on paper, they look like a contending team.
Right now, what they look like is they look like the not ready for primetime players being managed by the Keystone Cops.
Right. And then the schedule is so tough because obviously you got those other teams 18 or 19 times each. All right, we're going to move on to your latest blog. It is an article that's called, and I think you guys are going to like this because this doesn't only apply to baseball. All right, this is great. This is a good one. And I'm going to read.
Well, in my case, it does, but let's.
Right, in your case, it does, but it actually crosses. So I'm going to read just your opening paragraph to get started. So the title of the blog is All-Star Voting, Enough is Enough Already. And for all those who want to read the blog, we're going to link the blog in this video clip on YouTube once we post it to YouTube. But the blog is located at throneberryfields.com, one word. All right, and again, it is titled All-Star Voting, Enough is Enough Already. And the first paragraph goes, Major League Baseball's All-Star Game began as an exhibition tied to the 1933 Chicago's World's Fair during the city's centennial. Chicago fathers thought it was one way to help cheer up a nation rent by the Great Depression. Now the All-Star Game and its selection process are depressing. So, Jeff, my first question is, how does Major League Baseball select their All-Stars?
This year, they came up with the brilliant idea of a kind of primary round of voting online where fans would vote for those who would make the cut of what's coming this week for a 28-hour period called the starters election. Now, let me get a little bit more into that. In the primary round, you were allowed to vote 5 times in a 24-hour period over several weeks. And that's only slightly less of a joke than the political open primary in which you can vote for anybody regardless of your party and maybe be responsible for a party fielding people you don't want in the field in the first place. Now, what is shaken out of the primary round is that a lot of players who should be still on all-star ballots got squeezed off. Some players who had no business being on the ballot managed to stay on the ballot through the primary vote anyway, including one player who was designated for assignment.
Right.
And now what you have is that Anthony Rendon, who's the National League's leading third baseman in on-base and slugging percentage and wins above replacement, is not going to be on the starters election ballot. He may be picked for the team for the roster anyway, but he's not going to be one of the starters, and he deserves to be.
Right.
Peter Alonso, the Mets first baseman, the Rookie of the Year candidate, he's having a better season than Josh Bell, but Peter Alonso didn't make the starters election ballot. And you can go further up and down and see that players who deserve to be considered for the starting lineup aren't on the starters election ballot, and a lot of players who didn't quite make it or didn't quite deserve to be starters are going on that ballot. I mean, how does Kyle Schwarber with a 794 OPS make the outfield cut in the National League? That's just one example.
Right. Well, I think the Anthony Rendon example is incredibly jarring, to be honest with you. And I don't know necessarily if Nolan Arenado, Chris Bryant, or Josh Donaldson, which one of them should not be there.
Chris Bryant is one of the Chris Bryant is on the starters election ballot. He made the cut.
Right, but so is Josh Donaldson and Nolan Arenado.
Right.
So which one of those guys do you take away for Rendon?
Well, obviously, Rendon did not get what he deserved for whatever reason. I mean, fans are still voting favorites, popular, all recognition up and down, whether or not big market. There are players even outside big markets who have fan recognition, and fans are voting for the guys they've always recognized and not paying attention to how these guys are actually playing.
Right. What do you guys think about fan voting for All-Stars?
Well, personally, I think I talked about this in my article, but I'd be glad to run it down in thumbnail for all your listeners. I had a few ideas on how to redress this and give the fans a chance to vote reasonably. One, why not let the statisticians from the Elias Sports Bureau, Stats Incorporated, Fangraphs, and Baseball Reference determine the all-star ballot, say 5 candidates per position? Because there is something wrong when Anthony Rendon and a few others in the top 10 in the league don't get on the final stars election slate. And to revamp the all-star vote from there, keep it online, but you make it one vote, one time for the fans. Don't give the fans 5, 10, 15, 20 chances to vote like it's been done in the recent past.
Right.
And you vote one vote, one time, only from your own home computer. You don't get to go to the library and access the computer to pile on the vote. And then you combine that fan vote, I think, with the votes from the people who actually know and play the game, players, coaches, managers. The idea is to make the All-Star Game as close to a full showcase for the best in the game as possible, right, and not a Lifetime Achievement Award. If you're looking for a Lifetime Achievement Award, it's called the Hall of Fame.
Right. Now, see, I like the lifetime achievement aspect of it. For example, the NBA this year, we saw a nod go to Dirk Nowitzki, and we saw a nod go to Dwayne Wade, although they may not have potentially deserved it. I don't mind seeing them expand by one player.
It's a problem with the NBA's game too. I know it's been a problem with the NBA's All-Star Game for quite a while too.
It's horrible. Let me ask these gentlemen how they feel about fan voting for All-Star games.
So
Jason,
is fan voting the same way that they vote on the NBA for the NBA All-Star game?
But
what's the problem with that?
But here's the problem: is this time it's even worse because what they did is they created 2 rounds. So you will get eliminated as of a certain date, and they only take the top 3 from a particular position.
Vote-getters.
After that date. So after that, then you're a finalist. Okay, so there's players that should be finalists that are not, and now they're just out. And of course, bonuses depend on it. Contracts depend on it.
Why they don't do? Why can't you make it one round?
In all fairness, this is not the first time that Major League Baseball's All-Star voting has come out slightly wacky. I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to tell you about a Hall of Famer, who got voted to 17 All-Star games, regardless of whether he actually deserved to be an All-Star in all those seasons, but he actually only deserved the All-Star starting honor 8 times, and he went to 19 games total. Who am I talking about?
I don't know, but I'm thinking now. You're not going to Cal Ripken, are you?
Bingo.
Wow.
I am talking Cal Ripken.
But let me stop you 1 second. As a shortstop, though, wouldn't it be fair to say that Cal Ripken...
This is regardless of his field position.
Mm-hmm.
He was voted to 17 All-Star starting lineups, and he only deserved to be there 8 times, and he went to 19 games total, 17 as a starter and twice more as a roster addition.
Right.
The flip side of the coin, Keith Hernandez, arguably the greatest defensive first baseman who ever played. He went to 5 All-Star games. He was voted a starter only once, and he probably deserved to start 7 games.
Wow. So, again, Jason, what do you think about fan voting? Are you in favor of fan voting?
I'm in favor of fan voting.
What about fans stuffing the ballot? What about fans having multiple votes?
I like that because I'm thinking of it from the NBA standpoint. I go into Google and I vote for whoever I want to see each and every day, and I don't have a problem with that. The true fans are gonna vote for who they want to see. If I really want to see that person, I'm gonna vote for that person every single day.
What about the guy that deserves the spot?
Well,
what about Omar Infante in 2015, folks?
Right. So you're a Utah Jazz fan.
Okay.
And you're going to go on there and you're going to vote 25 times for Donovan Mitchell.
Absolutely.
Even though he might be the 8th best shooting guard in the game.
All right, let me explain. Well, I'm So, for example, this year I didn't go on there and every time vote
Omar
for Donovan
Infante,
Mitchell, but I
Kansas City
did
Royals
vote for him a
infielder.
few times. But I was still looking at it from the standpoint that I'm a fan of basketball. I'm a fan of the sport. So I go on there and whoever is performing, since I follow the sport, whoever is performing well, that's who I'm voting for. Even for this past year, again, I saw Luka doing his thing. I was voting for Luka as well. I saw certain people that did step up, so I was voting for those people. So if I
Right.
hear a name that is popular, I'm going to make a point to say, okay, I think this person should be in the All-Star game this year.
Right, Joe. What do you think?
I want to ask you basketball guys something.
Okay.
In baseball, there have been instances of ballot box stuffing. The most notorious was the 1957 incident in which Cincinnati fans stuffed the ballot box for the Reds and put 7 Reds in the starting lineup, and it was so out of hand that the commissioner took the vote away from the fans until 1969. Has the NBA ever had ballot box stuffing trouble?
Yes, Yao Ming.
I think they have had some stuffing, but it hasn't been that bad.
Nothing like
how
Cincinnati.
about the time when Kobe didn't play one single game and showed up for the All-Star game as a starter?
Well, that's an issue, but we all like to watch Kobe play, though.
But he didn't deserve it.
Aaron-
And I think that's the point.
Aaron Judge of the Yankees is going to be on the starters election ballot, and he missed most of the season on the injured list so far, and he came back only today.
You know what my solution is for this? I say let the fans do whatever they're going to do, but you're going to have to look at percentages, right? And what I'd like to see...
Wait it.
Right. So I'd like to see your peers, like whatever you're good at, whether you're an attorney, doctor, whatever, your peers know who are the best people. And they're usually generally pretty fair about that. So they can vote for you, then you have the writers vote for you, and then the fans can do whatever they do. So then that way there's a way to kind of cancel out.
You know what? I like that idea.
Control.
I'm going to put it into some mathematical terms. Let the fans vote as much as they want.
Yes.
But that, no matter how many votes come in, it will only weigh about 20% of what is needed to finish the vote. And then you can go to media, and then you can go to peers to balance to make up the other 80%. So let the fans have fun, but it's really not going to carry much weight.
Now, you can also throw in that thing we were talking about, like a legacy person, right? So say, for example, Vince Carter is his last year next year. You can throw him in there just like you kind of threw
Right.
Dirk in there.
But
Dwayne Wade.
I feel you need to expand the team by that one Hall of Famer,
And that's fine.
not cut off another guy to get
Agreed.
that Hall of Famer
and he's
in
not
there.
going to play that much anyway. You know what I mean?
Right,
So
right.
I think fan voting should still be the majority, though. I think fan voting and then performance and stats. I don't think you should be having so many different levels of people, like separate,
But
like
you don't-
fans,
but you don't
media,
notice a lot of
writers.
fans don't understand like what's going on with the sport, or they're like so skewed, like their thought process as to who they want to see, that they don't really get that somebody that really deserves to be there.
Well, I think you
won't be.
I think you kind of fix all problems when you do fan voting, and then you match it up with who's been performing and their stats. So
So you're saying disqualify the fan votes that don't make sense. Like, for example, Aaron Judge getting all these votes when he hasn't played. Someone in the office should be like, Aaron Judge,
Nah.
no.
yes,
Okay.
because you
What do you
because-
think? What do you think about that, Jeff? Is that a compromise?
I don't really know. I'm in favor. I'm hoping to simplify the All-Star vote as much as possible without taking the fans out of it. I don't want to see the fans removed from the All-Star voting, but I want to see it done reasonably and simply. That's why I said in my piece, keep it online only, make it one vote, one time for the fans, and why not have the statisticians at Elias Stats, Fangraphs, Baseball Reference determine the ballot in the first place, because they'll put the best of the best that season onto that ballot. A real fan wants to see the best of the best play.
But then
a real
is
fan wants
the Elias mathematicians going to skew heavily towards analytics and miss somebody? Because if you're looking at statistics to determine who's deserving, yeah, granted, most of the time you're probably going to come out right, but there's times where you're going to miss something. For example, a fantastic
no,
defensive
no system is
shortstop
going to be
is not going to
perfect.
have great stats. Okay, they may
we both
lean to
we
WAR.
both know no system will be perfect, but when you But when Anthony Rendon, who is right now the top third baseman in the National League, doesn't make the starters election runoff, there's something wrong there.
Right.
I mean, he's going to be on the roster, but he deserves to start the game. And when this happens, something is definitely wrong. Now, we're never going to get a perfect system. I think you and I both know that. It'll never be perfect. But what I came up with is about as close as you can get to making the All-Star Game a showcase for the best in the game as possible. And if we can get to that as best as possible, I think it's good for the fans, it's good for the All-Star Game, and it's good for the sport.
I have a question.
Go ahead. Jason has a question.
So when I think about, and I might be thinking about baseball differently than basketball. When I think of the All-Star Game, I don't think of it as the best. They are the best of the best players, but I don't think of it as we're about to see the best skills come out on this game. I think of it as a show. All-Star Weekend in NBA is a show. Now, on baseball side, are we thinking, oh, this is a show and this is for the fans, or are we thinking, okay, this is about to be a great game because we got all the greatest talents in the game?
I'm going to differentiate baseball All-Star Game from basketball All-Star Game.
Okay.
The basketball All-Star Game, while it should be the best basketball you'll ever see, it turns out to be the worst for 3.5 quarters.
A show.
Okay?
Yep.
Well,
the baseball
no
All-Star
game is going to be like the World Series or the NBA
right,
Finals.
the baseball All-Star Game is real because there's no faking it. There's no not playing defense in baseball. So it is actually the ultimate competition between the greatest players in the game at one time.
Okay.
Very different than the basketball because...
And it's American versus National League.
Right. It's because in the basketball, they don't really play until 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And then, fear of getting hurt, whatever, so forth. But in the baseball All-Star Game, it's real. It's real baseball from beginning to the end. It's the very best competition that you're going to get.
That makes a difference.
It makes a big difference. So, and you're all for fan voting, and I think that's what Jeff was saying also. He wants to keep the fans involved.
I would like to keep the fans involved.
I want to keep the fans involved, but I want to see it done simply and reasonably. Because in 2000, I'll give you an example. In 2015, there was a move out of Kansas City to stuff the box for the Royals, and it looked like the single worst infielder in the American League that year, who happened to be a Royal, was going to make the starting lineup in the All-Star Game.
Right.
And that was at a time the Royals were trying to trade him.
Right.
So what I tried to come up with was a way to make it simple without eliminating the fans from the process, but make it simple, make it equitable, make it reasonable, and get as close as you could get to an All-Star Game that does really show the best in the game.
I think it's what about you? What do you promote first? Do you promote the fan voting first, or are you promoting the statistics on what they're doing that season? Because if you're promoting,
what I proposed was
I'm not talking about you specifically. I'm just talking in general.
So my proposal was let the statisticians compose the ballot and then let the fans vote.
Okay.
And let the fans vote first. Then let the players, coaches, and managers vote after the fans do.
I don't think you should put the fan voting first. If I understand it correctly, I think you should promote what's happening. Well, I think you should promote what's happening currently this season for each player. Who's the best third base? Who's the best at second base? Who's the best at first base? You promote those. You continuously show that to the fans. That will be MLB's responsibility to continue to promote that, and then psychologically you might be able to encourage the fan voting to vote for who the best actually is. I'm not guaranteeing you that it will work, but I think psychologically it can help sway and make sure that people in the All-Star Game, the best of the best, are there. What do you think?
What you just said was one good reason why I suggested that the statisticians should compose the ballot first before the voting opens. For the reason you just said.
Okay, I'm with you then. All right.
Yeah.
All right, Jeff. Hey, we got to run. I want to thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Loved having you on, and it was a great conversation. Just want to remind everyone, follow Jeff on Twitter at Jeff Kallman 55. Correct me when I get this wrong, Jeff. At Jeff Kallman 55.
That's right, Jeff Kallman
Jeff
55.
Kallman 55. Check out his blog for sure. That is throneberryfields.com. All right, Jeff. Thanks again.
Thank you very much thank you for having me.
We're going to have you back again very soon to talk some baseball. I appreciate it. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff. I'll be sure to follow you too.
And I enjoyed talking to you fellas from the NBA.
All right.
Gotcha.
Joe, you didn't say anything that whole time. What do you think?
I was just following.
What do you think? Okay, related to NBA, if you need to. What do you think about fans voting and the players who deserve to be All-Stars being technically, left out by fans in some cases?
There's a balance to what he was saying. Jason was saying it's entertaining, it's entertainment. People are going to turn the TV on for that. They're not necessarily going to come just to see people that have the best stats. But there is a balance there, like you said, because guys are earning paychecks from this. They're getting what they deserve. If you have a good season, you belong on there.
Right.
So that's why I was saying you just really have to figure out a way to put the guys that fans want to see, and then put the guys on there that deserve to be there, but then balance out that system to make sure that the people that are better qualified to choose have more weight than the fans.
So
how many times you sit down with a fan and the fans don't know anything?
Here's what we need to do. Looking at it from a baseball perspective, and then you can scale it to fit the NBA. It is a 162 game season is so tough that when a guy is having, through 70, 75 games, his career year, you know what I mean, and putting in, doing all the work and having his best year and being the best at his position and deserving it, and then to not get it because of a bigger name, you know what I mean? That just seems unfair. The All-Star game should be the best players in the first half of the season. I don't want it to be a popularity contest. I want it to be an award to the person that deserves it.
Ooh, yeah.